All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Whew! Just wanted to quickly catch up. Where have I been? What the hell am I doing? If you give a shit. Well, the weather's been great, so I've been doing a lot of riding. Yesterday it was almost 90 degrees. Beautiful sunny day. Today, believe it or not, it's 87. It's overcast. It's sunny. It's overcast. It's back and forth with some clouds. And I've been doing a lot of tilling. Can't see this plot here, but it's pretty long. It's decent size. And last year, I grew produce over here, and I used probably 1/3 of this total area. It comes all the way down to forward of where I'm sitting, and it's reasonably wide. And so I had to till this. Now, last year I didn't till at all. Last year, what I did was because this learning process for me, but much to my delight, it turns out that the learning curve isn't that big. I mean, you learn vast amounts in a short period of time just by doing. I mean, certainly I ask questions to neighbors and stuff and people that I know, but that know more than me about it. But actually, when you do it, then you really learn a lot about it when you really do something, anything, right? As you know, firsthand experience. So last year, I made a lot of mistakes that I learned from, but I also did some things that were right. And the outcome was really good. The yield, the harvest produce yield was really large on some things. For instance, I didn't till like I said last year, but I did take a hoe and turn the ground over and beat it all up, and I even bought a whole bunch of topsoil, which was unnecessary, which was like really good, supposedly really good topsoil for growing produce in, and that completely didn't even have to happen. This ground seems to be very fertile, believe it or not. So last year I grew, I don't know what the hell all I had back here. I had tomatoes, and I like the little tomatoes. So I had cherry tomatoes, I had Cherokee tomatoes, and I had these other little tomatoes that are these little yellow oblong tomatoes. I can't remember what they're called now. But the tomato yield was fantastic. Those tomato plants, you don't even need that many to yield a couple hundred potatoes. Tomatoes. You can grow a couple hundred tomatoes in the season with plants that, and beyond the season, when it started to turn cold last year, had I brought those plants back inside, because that's where they all start out, and I'll put that in here. I've got seedlings in there sprouting, and I stagger it, depending what the plant is, what I'm trying to grow. I've started planting a couple weeks ago, and I start them in the house, and then every weekend, it's another tier, and you'll see that when I put a little clip in here of it. And I get them to where they're, pretty strong and they're viable, and then I transplant them out here. So, like I said, last year the tomatoes did very, very well. And when the weather started to turn, if I had taken those plants and brought them back inside, because what I did was I had grown them in these larger pots, pretty good sized pots, for each plant. So then when I carried them out here, they just went to town, and they bloomed. They yielded tons of tomatoes, and they were incredibly sweet, better than anything I've ever gotten from the store ever in my life. They were really good. And when the weather turned, if I had just drug them back into the house, man, I would have probably gotten another 100 tomatoes. No bullshit, because they tried. They were all green, but there were so many of them, just huge bunches. But they couldn't really make it all the way back, because the weather had turned. Had I brought them in, I would have gotten a lot more tomatoes. I got a lot of them, but they were so delicious I could have eaten them. Now I also grew various gourds and squash, spaghetti squash, and I don't even know what over the two other kinds of squash, and they were very prodigious. What I didn't realize, the yield would be so tremendous. They just took over and spread like wildfire. They basically just, because they're viney, they basically spread almost just spilled over all the way out to where I'm sitting. And there were many, many, many of them, and they overwhelmed the area, and they actually choked out my watermelons and my pumpkins. I did get a couple watermelons, I did get a few pumpkins, but not very many, because they just got choked out. It just was overwhelming. And I kept coming out here and, cutting the leaves back and trimming it and everything so I could get more sunlight in there. But it still wasn't enough. So this year I learned from that, and I'm going to spread things out, because I definitely want to have a pumpkin patch. And much to my chagrin, they daggone, and I love birds. I'm an avid bird watcher, but the crows pecked the living shit out of one of my pumpkins, out of my best pumpkin last year. And he was almost ready, almost there. I've been watching him, coming out, checking on him, even moving him around on the ground so he didn't have any flat spots, so that every part of him got sun. And then a crow pecked a hole in him, basically. And he was at it a long time to get that accomplished, because it wasn't easy for him. Watermelons, they didn't do that great. Like I said, the pumpkins, they would have done a lot better had they not been so congested in there. Romaine lettuce was a huge surprise. I think I only had like maybe 6 or 7 romaine lettuce plants, but they were, when I first harvested them, I had so much romaine lettuce that I thought, how am I ever going to eat all of this? But I ate it all. It was so delicious. It was so delicious. I cannot even overstress the huge, drastic difference between anything I've ever had in my entire 60 years on Earth purchased from a grocery store or produce stand versus straight out of the, my own garden, straight out of the ground. Oh my God, night and day. It's like you've never tasted before. That's how much better it actually is. So that was incredible. So this year I'm just trying to expand upon that. Last year my strawberries didn't do very well. What else do we got going? And of course all the other usual stuff, cucumbers and bell peppers. Bell peppers did pretty good. They could have done better. They're going to do better this year. They did pretty damn good though. And they ended up having, they were being attacked by some kind of a rot or fungus, one plant was. And did some studying up on it, crushed up some calcium pills, put them in the ground with the peppers, and it cleared it right up. They became very healthy and just yielded some beautiful plants, some beautiful produce. And it had green ones, it had red ones, also had hot peppers, and they came out great too. They came out very well too, but how much of that do you really, really use? What I did was I let them dry out after I picked them. I let them dry out in the house and all, and then I've been crushing them up and grinding them up into different foods for flavoring, which is really nice. Because I kind of trust, I haven't had it tested, but I kind of trust that it doesn't contain the heavy metals that, I would have in the store if I went and bought some, from the spices rack or seasonings aisle or something. But the huge, really, the enormous difference was romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce is my favorite lettuce, but it's not like I love it, but I mean, I like it. So I can eat that no problem. But last year I had the homegrown romaine lettuce was so delicious that I wanted more of it. And when I finally ran out, because I had gotten used to eating so much of it every day, which was incredible. I felt so good eating it. It was very healthy. I could definitely feel the difference. That I had to return to the store, and even when I bought organic romaine lettuce, it was a disappointment. It tasted like shit right behind that. So my taste buds had to be reacquainted with this lowered expectation from what you buy off the shelf in the grocery store. So that's an amazing thing. If you've never grown your own produce, I highly recommend it. Stuff like tomatoes, so far to me, seem extremely easy and trouble-free to grow. Again, like squash, very prodigious, but they really will take over a lot more room than you think. So if you overplant for your area, it's going to be, they go crazy wild. They just become this never-ending series of vines, and it spreads out and it sprawls out all over the place. It's like urban sprawl, but it's gourd sprawl. It's fucking squash sprawl. And they came out good, and they tasted delicious. So I'm sure I'm forgetting some things. I'm going to put some shots in here, and I'll be talking over throughout this video of last year's yield, what I grew out here last year. This year, couldn't really use the tractor. Hit it once with the tractor, but it was difficult to turn it around and maneuver here because it's a decent size. It's a decent enough, a pretty good sized garden for most people, pretty good size, but it's still not, roomy or extensive enough to really maneuver around pulling the tractor with the tractor pulling that behind it. So I used a walk behind tiller and tilled the living hell out of it. So I would like to till it like 2 more times and really till the living shit out of it and get it turned over really well and busted up before I start putting plants out here. But I don't know. I'll at least get it one really good time. And then I don't know because I've never tried it, but it's supposed to rain tonight and tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to, but if it does, I'm wondering if not right away, but while the ground is still soft, if it'll be easier or worthwhile to try to till it then. I don't know. Will I be able to maneuver the tiller through there? Or, but I'm going to try it because that's how you learn. You try things. So it's been extremely rewarding, man. I would encourage anybody. I had so many squash and things that I was just giving the stuff away. I had so much of it. And it's the same with tomatoes. I gave a good bit of tomatoes away, but that was only people I really wanted them to experience it because I could have eaten them all. And there were plenty of them. They were so damn good. It was unbelievable. I was just picking them right off the vine and eating them. They're just incredibly delicious, right off the plant and eating them. I got a bunch of other stuff. Not everything came up last year, but like I said, it's a learning process, I think I'm going to do so much better this year, only being the real second year that I've actually really tried to grow this much kind of food or this extensively. And yeah, there are people out there, farmers out there to grow a lot more, but this is early in for me. I'm late to the game and I'm just learning. But you sure as hell learn a lot in a little time, and the sweat equity that you invest in it, the dividend it pays it's 10 times the investment of sweat equity. That's how good the food is and how nice it is to have all that really fresh, delicious plant matter to eat.